Our daughter Eleanor has had a variety of health issues since she was born, so we've been pretty familiar with Children's Hospital specifically. In 6 months, I think she had had about 6 different stays, so we've seen lots of different units, lots of different care teams, and it's always been a really positive experience. And then recently, she had a spinal surgery to detether her spinal cord, and then she had a complication where it was leaking spinal fluid, so she had to be readmitted to close it up and monitor that. And unfortunately, it fell over the last day of the nurses' strike, and it was like a pretty stark contrast to the care we'd grown accustomed to during her other stays. There was a couple specific instances that had us really concerned about the care she was receiving. Eleanor has always had a really hard time getting an IV or any sort of labs drawn, so we always request that the vascular access team come, who are supposed to be like a specialist in IV insertion. And it was just it just felt kind of chaotic. There was like 4 people pinning her down, including me, and they basically did like multiple attempts. They couldn't get the IV to work, and they just kept missing essentially. And it was just really traumatic for Eleanor and for me too, because you're like pinning her down for like probably 45 minutes or longer, and they're trying and it's not working. And then basically after multiple attempts, the vascular access nurse was just like, okay, I can't try anymore. And then they just all kind of looked at each other and were like, I don't know who can do it now. And then they were like, yeah, I don't know, we'll have to find somebody. It was just really frustrating that like the supposed like experts couldn't put an IV in her, and then didn't know who to even go to next, and would say that in front of us. It just makes you feel really like uneasy about the care she's receiving. As like a stark contrast to that, she ended up needing another IV maybe like 3 days later when the regular children's staff was back. And so again, we had vascular access do it, and it was just like night and day. The nurse was like so kind, so she like really took her time, found what she thought was like the best spot to do it. And she sang to her the whole time. She swaddled her so she didn't need 4 people to pin her, and Eleanor literally fell asleep during her IV. So it like couldn't have been more different. And it was just such a relief, because I had had so much anxiety about having to like have her go through that again after just having such a bad experience. So that IV issue was kind of the first incident that was kind of upsetting. And then it switched to be her overnight nurse. And there was an incident where my husband had to intervene because the nurse was going to change her diaper like you typically would, by like grabbing the ankles and lifting her up to wipe and to put the new diaper under. But obviously with like her incision on the base of her spine, she had a lifting restriction, and you weren't supposed to be lifting her that way. It was more like rolling her than lifting. And so luckily my husband was like there and like paying attention at the time, so he had to like intervene and tell her that she couldn't lift her like that. And so we were just really then concerned and felt like we could never leave her if somebody would do something that would potentially like reopen her incision, which was the whole reason that she was there. And then that same nurse overnight was just like really not available, and her IV pump was chiming like constantly, like every like 5 to 10 minutes it would start alarming. And she just like never came to check on it, and my husband had to like track her down, and basically she just said, oh, I don't know, like this is how you shut it off. And so she just told him how to like dismiss the alarm, but never investigated. We were really glad that we only kind of overlapped with the strike care team for just the day, but even so it was just very unsettling, because it just seemed so negligent and just not what we were accustomed to. I think that the public really should know the type of care that they can expect, and they should know that their caregivers are trained and qualified and invested in their health outcomes. And I think with that, they should basically know that there are safe staffing ratios, that the care team that they need will be available to them, and that they shouldn't have to worry, I guess, about tracking down tracking down nurses to do their cares or having to complain to the right person. You should just know that the team, whatever you're being admitted for, is like ready and willing and wants to care for you. I think that it's absolutely critical to retain the nurses that have that experience, because that's really, there's such a variety of issues that they're dealing with, and obviously we'd be more comfortable having our daughter be cared for with somebody that has had experience for years, hopefully, with that type of care, because really, like, the doctor provides the orders and checks in if you request it, and they round once a day, but like the nurse is the one caring for our child, and so it's really up to them, like, what type of care she's going to receive. And so if she if the nurse is not qualified or doesn't have much experience in that specialty, I just don't know how they could be expected to provide the best care.